Oftentimes when I'm planning my grayscale out ahead of time, I'll use a color that is a complementary color to the main colors that are in the composition, and that will pop it out a little bit. This has a little bit of a green to it, which will help pop the red out. Okay, let's see, we can do a little bit on the blanket. I just recently found some other accoutrements down on the underside that I haven't noticed before. Some of these engravings are so beautifully done, and until you get in there and start painting, you don't see the detail, and then each time you paint a little bit more on them, you see something new that you hadn't really caught before.
You use something I hadn't really thought of, and that's using those bean bags or sandbags to steady your hand. I think that's a good idea.
If I don't have bean bags, I wad up towels.
Yeah, but I mean, just having something that is soft, that you're steadying your hand instead of working just with your arms maybe on the edge of the table.
I have carpal tunnel, and I also, in my left arm has been rebuilt. I have metal rods and gizmos in my wrist, and I shake. As I get older, I find that the more coffee I drink, the more I shake. And so anyways, the beanbags do two things. They steady your hand, and they keep the edge of my wrist from rubbing against the table, which causes a great deal of pain. And I don't even remember that. Every once in a while I'll see something that's like, why didn't I think of that? Well, one day I saw something, and I was like, oh, beanbags, those are a great idea.
Yeah.
These are the ones that you get for the computer.
I could just see how you steady both hands so well to work so closely, like I say, without having your hand shake or anything else. It steadies you really well.
Works really well. And then if I need more of that going on, I grab a couple of towels and wad them up and try to shape them. You have to find something that you can kind of shape and make it into the shape that you want. Okay, I think this is good to kind of get the point across. You can see the purple over the green. So let me pass that around real quick, and then what I'll do is I'll go to a highlight. And basically what I'll do is I'll work back and forth. I'll do the darks, and then mainly out of boredom I'll want to do something else, so then I'll go to a highlight area, and I work back and forth, and then I meet in the middle at a certain point. But it is literally just, it's glazing. They're thin washes, and you build it up. After about a couple of days of doing that same thing, the colors will become more brilliant. It's frustrating for people to watch me paint because it seems like nothing is going on. But after a few hours, and the beauty of acrylics is that they dry so quickly that I can go away for a few minutes and come back and then put another layer on. With oil paints, you have to plan out your painting sessions a little bit more because the paint doesn't dry for a while. And so that's why I've been saving the oil paints. I've been doing as much as I can with the acrylics, and then going in and doing detail with oil paints over the top. And it's a much faster painting situation.
Penny, do you use the same technique with oil if you were doing this in oil?
Yes. Although, by the time I start using the oil paint, oftentimes the color is built up enough that I will feel more confident in laying in thicker color with the oil paints. But because I use it for detail, I am a tenderfoot with the oil paint as well. I would prefer to layer it. I would prefer to put in a line, let it dry, and then come back and bump it up. The other issue is that with both types of paints, with all kinds of paints, any that you can probably name, the color that it dries is different than what it looks like coming out of the bottle. So you kind of want to walk away and then come back and look at it again. So you can barely see that I put some in on the shadows of the blanket. I'll I'll put a little bit more, and then I'm going to switch to more of a red so that you can see what the red looks like. In fact, I was going to use this area of the blanket over here because there's a really good like cylindrical shape going on, and we can do some shaping of an object with that. I was trained painting with gouache and watercolors for illustration, so that's why these acrylics work really well for me. Okay, red. I like that red. Sometimes I'll put colors out on the palette because I think I'm going to use them, and then I go, yeah, I don't like that. But these acrylics are so reasonably priced that that's okay. I used to try to save every molecule of paint, and it's ridiculous to do that.
Well, special for 99 cents a bottle or less. Why?
Okay, that's not thin enough. I like to start with the darks because I can lay in the darks, and then when I'm laying in the thin layers of, like, say for example, the red over this purple, you can put the color red over the purple, and it's transparent, and so you can see the purple through it. And I want to see my underpainting. I don't want to obliterate my underpainting yet. In fact, I'm going to put this red right over that highlight so that you can still see the shadows in the highlight. Put some red here. You can see the washes are really thin. In fact, you can just pretty much take one of these reds and just, in fact, I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to take this red really thin and go over everything that's red. Oops, too much.
Do you try to use the same same brush for your blending one? Like if you're using a 2-aught, do you just stick with that? Or do you go back and use a smaller brush too?
For this stage, I'll use, this is actually a 0, but really it's like more than a 1. All of the companies, their numbering systems are kind of whacked.
They're different.
I would call this a 1 or a 2. And this is the Dick Blick Studio Synthetic. But I'll stick with this size for a while until I get the major areas done, and then I gradually get smaller and smaller. All right. Once again, the beauty of the acrylics is that you can do this thin, and then by the time we pass it around and get it back over here, it'll be ready for another layer. All right, there you go. And I guess I should hold that up for you. Now, it's going to look completely different. When it's done, as opposed to what it looks like now, it's going to go through all these changes. It's going to, like, evolve. So what I do, that's why I take photos as you go along, because it's gonna, next week, in the middle of the process, it's gonna look different than it does now, and then it'll even look more different at the end. You'll just be wondering, why did you take all of that time and and do all these different things? Well, it's because the colors show through, and your eye is mixing them, and that's what gives you a lot of depth. So I spend my painting sessions, I usually won't sit down unless I have 4 hours. So that way I can get a decent section done. If I sit down for an hour, it's okay, but I don't really feel like I've achieved anything.
Time to get everything all out and ready to go away.
Kind of instant gratification kind of a person, and I can only get that out of about 4 hours.
Which I thought it looked pretty nice one with just the gray shades.
I know a lot of people were telling me that. They're like, you should leave it the way that it is. But it's a red Lancer.
So you're mainly concentrating on your deepest areas first, right?
Yes, I work from the darks to the lights. And that's a personal preference. There's no rule or anything to that. That's just the way that I work. It's kind of like a pencil drawing. I work from dark to light.